am here today with the book, The Gene Keys by Richard Russ, as promised. I'm not going to lie, this is probably my current favorite book in the world. I find myself talking about this book to all of my friends, referencing different pieces. So first, I'm just going to tell y'all a little bit about how I even stumbled across this book. Secondly, I'm going to give you a brief intro into the concept of like what the heck are gene keys, if you've never heard of that. And then third, I'm going to just pick an excerpt from a part, read about it. Fourth, I'm going to give you my, commentary, analysis, thoughts on that part of the book. And I may do that while I'm reading, stop and do that. That's what I'm gonna do. And then fifth, I'm just gonna give, a little advice, a little wrap up, some words of encouragement. So that's how I will be ending my videos, because that's why I like the books that I like, because all of it is applicable to real life, stuff that we all go through. That's why I said self-help, personal development, spiritual books. Those are the types of books that I'll be sharing, because I do want for you to walk away. Like, yes, I want you to relax and enjoy someone reading to you, but I also want you to walk away with something actionable, meaningful that you can apply to your own life. So that's kind of the layout. I know this is the first one, so that's kind of the layout that we're going for. So first, how did I end up wanting to read this book? I actually stumbled across it. I think I was on TikTok, and it wasn't like, oh, read this book, like a trend or anything. Someone was talking about it, or it might have been Instagram, don't remember, but someone was just talking about the book and the impact that it had on them, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, what book is this? And they said they were actually working on the workbook. And I guess there's a companion workbook to this, and that they were doing like some spiritual work, some self-work with it and everything like that. So I was like, okay, I'm like, well, what are gene keys? Like, what are they doing? So my curious mind went, and I'm like, okay, let me look into this book. Let me see what it's all about. And there's actually a survey. There's not a survey, I guess like almost like a personality test, one of those personality assessments. And I went and I took that because I'm really into personality assessments, quizzes, like what type of person am I, making me a more self-aware individual. So I did that, and it was like this mixture of like astrology meets like genetics. So I'm like, oh, this is like some deep, real stuff. Like, they had my attention right there. So I'm like, oh, I knew that once I had to enter the time and the city that I was born in, stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, like y'all are going into like some astrological rooms and stuff like that. I'm like, genes, genetics. I'm like, let's see what's to this. Let's see what it's all about. And I'll see how it resonates with me after I've done the survey, to see like, is it in alignment? Do I agree? Do I disagree? So I did it really quick. You just upload that information and it tells you. And then it gave me these like numbers, these keys. It was like this visual, and it had like numbers on it. I'm like, okay, what do these numbers mean? So on the website, it explains the different meaning behind each numbers. And I'm just giving you like a brief overview, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, I want to know everything about it, because I was reading, I'm like, hold up, like, this is reading the F out of me. Like, this is reading me to the T. Like, this is me. Like, this is who I am. This is what I struggle with. This is the type of person I am. Like, in real time, how do they know this? This is very accurate. So I'm like, whatever resource is the like full package, the full real deal on this outside of the website, I need that. And that's the book. So I went ahead and bought the book, and I just was intrigued, and I'm just like, wow. So of course, the first thing I did was read more in depth about the gene keys that showed up in my profile, is what they call it, like in my genetic profile. So I wanted to know everything about those, like more about the type of person I am, the type of like, well, shadows as they call it, but like the shadows that I'm facing, the shadow work I guess I would need to do. And then like the gift is what they call it. So like, when I overcome the shadow, like what's like the light at the end of the tunnel, type of thing. So that is where I went. But then I just, they also recommend treating it like an oracle. So where you just kind of, like a fortune teller, where you just kind of, what resonates with me today? What do I need to hear? What do I need to read? And then you turn to a page and you start reading. And I'm like, that's neat. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just try it. So it's not one of those books that you sit and read from start to finish. I mean, you could, but that's not how they want you to, that's not how they recommend you go about using it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna just try it like that one day. And that was kind of fun for me. I'm like, ooh, an experiment. So I did that. And every time, I kid you not, it's like it's like a word, almost like the Bible. I was like, this is like my Bible at this point in life. Like, who knows? I'm not going to always feel that way, I'm sure. But right now was really feeding my spirit and nurturing me and helping me make certain decisions in my life. This book, it has a lot of influence. And when I do that, it's on point. Like, it's literally like spirit, creator, God, whomever is like guiding me to the message that I need. So really cool book. I'm going to just read, a little excerpt to y'all today from a good book. No, let me stop. But really quick, just so you can have a better understanding of the book in itself. So it says it's a code book of consciousness. The gene keys are a new code book of consciousness. To apply them directly to your life, you need to know which codes apply specifically to you and how. All biological codes are imprinted at specific times, and those times can tell us a great deal about you. When you read the introduction to the gene keys, you will learn about your hologenetic profile. So that's what I was referring to, y'all. I got my hologenetic profile, and those were the numbers. Your profile is calculated from the time, date, and place of birth and can be accessed free online at genekeys.com. So I highly recommend that y'all go do that if you haven't already. I think it's dope. It's not scary. It's not, I don't know, spiritually witchy or anything. I feel like it's science meets astrology, which I really feel like astrology is a type of science, esoteric. That's a different story, but I feel like it's science meets like the spirituality. I feel like it's a combination of all of that. Once you have your hologenetic profile, your journey of contemplation begins in earnest, as it highlights specific gene keys that have a powerful bearing on your purpose, your relationships, and your prosperity. All right, so that's a little intro. That's not the excerpt. I'm going to actually read a little excerpt to y'all. And I decided that we're going to start with, what chapter is this? Just chapter 1. We're going to start with chapter 1, and I'm just going to read some of the parts that stood out to me. So the former English teacher, reading specialist in me, I read with a pen. So I'll just show y'all. Like, I highlight, I make notes. You see my chicken scratch. But yeah, so some of the parts that I highlighted that must have resonated with me at that time, I feel like they'll probably still resonate. So I'm going to share those with y'all. And we're just going to jump around a little bit, but it'll still make sense. So one part I highlighted, it says, entropy manifests in human beings as numbness. And this numbness is actually an extremely fertile state of awareness. So it just made me think like, okay, those times when we're feeling kind of numb, but we're really in this state of awareness. So that was kind of like contradictory to me. So that stood out to me. The first shadow appears in your life whenever you feel flat or sad or low. This is a chemical process that the body enters into. And if you try to comprehend it, find a reason for it, or worst of all, try to fix it, the natural process will not complete itself cleanly. So this is really talking about depression and depressive states. And it'll go more into that in a second, but I just wanted to point that out. So I feel like a lot of us, unfortunately, at this point in life have experienced, I'm not even going to say unfortunately because it's changed my perspective on it. But I feel like all of us either have personally or we know someone who's been depressed and experienced depression, right? I feel like most of us would say like we didn't like it. It's not a space we want to be in. It's a space we want to get out of. We want to control it. We want it to be done, right? So let me go back and reread that. Whenever you feel flat or sad or low, it's a chemical process. So you probably have heard that like it's a chemical imbalance is what they say. That enters into the body. And if you try to comprehend it, find a reason for it, or worst of all, try to fix it, then the natural process will not complete itself cleanly. And I said, well, look at that. So like I just said, a lot of us want to try and fix it. We want to try and control it. We want to work our way out of it. And that's usually the advice that like family and friends who care about us, they want to like, well, what happened? Well, what can you do? Well, start doing this, start doing that, like get yourself out of it. And especially when people don't understand it, like I'll be honest, before I went through it, I didn't understand this. I'm like, well, I'm thinking just be happier. Like, just go do what you used to do. Like, duh. Like, if you don't want to be depressed, don't be depressed. Like, that was the ignorance and not knowing side of me. So it wasn't until I went through it and I'm like, it's like my mind and my body, like everything is on different pages. Like I know it's like my mind and my mind was on different pages. So knowing now that you're just supposed to experience it, like you have to let it cleanse itself. It's not something that we're supposed to be trying to actively fix and change. That's not how it works. That in itself caught my attention because I'm like, wait a minute. That ain't what people be telling me. That ain't, the advice people be giving. They want you to like, go work it out. Like, go do this, go do that. So let's keep going. Skipping some lines. Most depressive states are the result of resisting certain shadow frequencies within our genetic makeup. Depending on your individual genetic predispositions, you may be more or less prone to feeling low than others. Generally speaking, the more creative a person you are, the more deeply you are affected by this kind of melancholic chemistry. Okay, your system is recharging, so the energy within you withdraws into a kind of stasis. And I said, oh, that makes sense. So like when my body is going into this flat, low, sad state, think about your phone now, right? Your phone, the battery is dying. What does it need? It needs to recharge. If you have that phone and you steady pressing buttons like turn on. If it's dead, bro, it's dead. I don't care who you give it to. I don't care what you do with it. Unless you go charge it, you let it rest, you let it get back to that percentage. It is what it is. And the longer you let it charge, what happens? The longer it's going to be charged and the more you can use it versus if you're just like, all right, I'm gonna let it charge for like 5 minutes. You didn't let it rest long enough, right? You didn't let it charge long enough. So I'm like, when you think about items and objects outside of us in our environment, and then you think about like how we function, things are built from us and based on us, a lot of things in the world. So it's like, duh, like it clicked for me. So hopefully it clicked for y'all too. The fact that our system is recharging. So the energy within you withdraws into a kind of stasis. The resulting feelings or lack of feeling and or enthusiasm provide a delicate environment for something quite special to occur if you are patient enough to allow it. So I'm like, oh, that sounds beautiful. Like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, we don't like depression again? No, like we have to surrender to it in order to allow our body to rest, to reset. This depression, deep rest. I remember the first time somebody explained it to me like that. That is my body telling me it's time for me to get this deep rest. It's like this hibernation, right? So hearing it like that, and it's like, oh, and there's a gift, there's a light at the end of that tunnel too. So if I just surrender to it, then there's going to be this gift. So let me go back to that. There's something quite special to occur if you are patient enough to allow it. So exercising the art of surrender and patience, crucial when you're going through that. This something is a creative process. In other words, your low energy means that something intangible is gestating inside you, even though you cannot see it. Only when the state mutates to its expressive stage will you see what the process is about. So that's basically saying that only when, and I'll use my own situation for example, like when I was going, when I had the worst depression of my life, and I didn't understand it, tried to fix it, it got really bad, everything, and at some point I just kind of said, it is what it is. All right, I'm gonna watch TV every day, and what I feel like doing on that day, that's what I'm gonna do, and it just was time to kind of heal. And then part of me, each day, I would say, over time, started wanting to do a bit more. So it's kind of like when I surrendered to it, I started to get a little bit of energy back each day, right? And then out of nowhere, I birthed my first business. What was my second? Life coaching first, but my second business, and it was the most creative business that I had at the time. And it was my greeting cards. And I remember it just was like a download, right? Going back to the phone analogy, downloaded the information. And I'm like, okay, well, I wanted to make some money. That's where it came from. I'm like, I want to make some more money. But I want to utilize, my interests, my talents, my gifts. What are they? And I'm like, well, I know how to write a little bit. I know how to do rhymes and stuff. Am I supposed to be a rapper? No. So I'm like, what can I do with that? How can I channel that? And I have the ability, I have the background as far as teaching, writing, English, reading, all of that. So I'm like, what can I do with that? And I was like, well, little sayings, where do I see little sayings and quotes? People don't just pay people to write quotes that I knew of. I don't know. So I was like, greeting cards. Okay, I can write quotes and inspirational messages. And at the time, I had an Instagram page that I was just posting quotes as they came to me and inspirational messages. And it started resonating with people. At first, I randomly did it on Snapchat. That showed you some years ago, right? I don't really use Snapchat anymore. But yeah, I was doing it there. And then I'm like, okay, let me take this Instagram and make them like pretty, whatever the little platform was at the time. And I started posting quotes and I'm like, that can be greeting cards. All right. Like I started researching and looking for greeting card businesses that I could work for. So I'm like, well, how does this work? Do they hire writers or whatever? And I found a couple, but it wasn't really hitting. And I'm like, well, F it. Like, I'm gonna do my own. So it was like, when I tell you, this came during the darkest time of my life, when I was coming out of the darkest time out of my life. And it wasn't something that was forced. It was something organic. It was something that like I downloaded is the best way I can say it. It just kind of came to me, kind of picked it up in the morphogenetic field. That's a word I learned. I don't know if I said it right, but it's very interesting. We'll talk about it on a different day. But anywho, it came to me. And that only came from that depressive space, right? Like I had to go through that to get to this light at the end of the tunnel, that creativity, and it brought out this creative side out of me. And I loved it. Like during that time, I loved my greeting cards. I loved the creativity behind it, coming up with the designs, the connections that I was making with people, sharing it with people, the writing, seeing people give these cards to their families, the extra money. Like during that season, that was my thing. I loved it. I'm not even gonna say unfortunately, like now just growing and evolving as a woman, that's not my thing anymore. I'm not there. But during that time, that was my thing. That was the gift that I was able to receive. So going back to our text, right? Only when a state mutates to its expressive stage will you see what the process is about. So its expressive stage was going from that depressive state, getting that creativity, and it expressed itself through my greeting cards. So that's when I was able to see what that whole process was about. At the beginning, do you think I'm sitting there thinking like, oh yeah, I'm super depressed and like everything is horrible. I've like quit my job. I'm like sad. I'm crying. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to talk to anybody. But I'm gonna have a great greeting card business at the end of this, and I'm gonna make so many friends and connections and make extra money. Do you think I knew that? Of course not. Like it does not work that way, right? So my everybody was scared. Like, what the heck is going on? Like, my track record up to that point was impeccable. So it's like, what's going on with her? We have to fix her. We have to fix it. So it's like this group effort trying to fix me, right? And I couldn't even fix me. So that was like what gestated through that whole process. But we don't know what's going to happen until the universe, God, creator, reveals it at the end of that process. So we have to go through it first. Like that's law. That's universal law. You have to. But I feel like the piece that has helped me now is knowing that information, right? And I'm gonna come back to that because I got something to say about that. I'm gonna finish this one paragraph and I'm gonna stop, y'all. These low times in your life are therefore very special times, right? Perspective. That's how I'm gonna end this. Perspective. And they generally require aloneness and withdrawal in order for the seeds sprouting inside you to germinate. It's just so much I can say about that. So we gotta analyze that sentence right there. Okay. So changing my perspective about how I looked at those low states, it has done me a world of good. Okay. Surrendering to them, and that's my word for this season, this almost a year now, but that's my word. Surrendering to it and knowing that it is only for a season. It is going to be a cycle, and that's going to keep happening in life. Like whenever it wants to happen, it's going to happen. But changing my perspective and not thinking of this as like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. I'm sad. I'm depressed. Like, no, it's not about that. These are special times, y'all. And although it doesn't feel good, when you have that understanding and you change your perspective and you understand that, I know the cliche is a light at the end of the tunnel, but in reality, like that creative energy, that gift is going to be there. Like once you rest and you just let your body get that deep rest and you stop trying to be in control, because you're not in control. It's not how this goes. And when you stop and you just kind of listen to your intuition, and it's like my intuition kind of telling me like, oh, well, you like to write. Okay. Well, like, this is what you could get paid for. Well, no, maybe you should do it. And it's like, I had a quiet mind and I was still. Be still and know that I was still, right? So you have to be quiet. You have to surrender. You have to go through this deep rest. And then you can hear yourself think. Y'all gotta be preaching in here, Lord. Okay. So withdrawal, they said withdrawal and aloneness. that goes back to, I know you've probably seen it on social media, being alone does not equate to lonely. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, because I just came back from a like 7-week social media detox, and that was the longest I had ever been. We'll talk about it another time. But I use that as an example to say I was pretty much alone. Like I intentionally withdrew from my social media, and then I had my winter break from work. So I really was like isolated almost, and like some days it would be that lonely feeling. But there was the higher part of me that understood, like, this is intentional, this is by design, this is what my spirit needs right now. Like, I need this deep rest. So I wasn't sad, I just was kind of chilling, and it was kind of just like, almost some angst, because I'm like, what's next? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to be working on? But also learning that I'm a human, I'm not a machine, right? So I don't have to always be producing something. I don't have to be on this mass production. So if I'm just chilling right now and doing what I enjoy, which was, I like to read. So that was really just helping me to relax and be calm. And lo and behold, my creativity came to me. I'm like, I want to talk about these books. Like, it's not a business venture. It's not sexy to some, although I think it's sexy, like Pretty Woman with a Prettier Mind. Hello. But yeah, I'm like, it's not like what everybody is doing. And I'm okay with that. Like, this is what I need to do. Y'all weren't called to do this. This did not come as a gestation after y'all low moments. This came as a gestation after my low moments, after I had to go through my deep rest and step back, right? This was my special time. So this is what I got out of mine. All right, let me try and finish it up. I'm talking so much, y'all, but it's okay. Y'all needed this word. Whew. Okay, so those alone times, right? So we're spending time alone. We can hear ourselves think. The worst enemy at such time is interference from your own mind. And that is like what one of the reasons I felt compelled to step away from social media. It's this interference from your own mind, or indeed someone else's mind, wondering what is wrong with you, right? So like I said, I learned to kind of quiet that voice in my own head. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, I didn't step away from social media. I didn't like kind of start isolating because there's something wrong. Like, I just know that this is what I need in some like unspoken way. Some like, I understand, spirit understands, this is what my body needs. And I feel like I can't hear myself think sometimes when I'm too like, social media is loud. I don't know about y'all, but it's loud. Like, people are marketing to you all day. They're trying to influence you all day. You're constantly having the opportunity to just look at what people are doing, and not even in a comparison type of way, because I'm not talking about that. Just like the fact that that's what's getting my energy and my attention versus putting it on myself. So that's kind of why I stepped away from that, but also realizing that, ma'am, you don't need to interfere. You don't need to be trying to figure nothing out. You don't need to be trying to do anything. So really just like chilling and relaxing, like that is, so interference, that's the worst. That's not what you need. And you don't figure out what's wrong with you, because there's nothing wrong with you, right? There's not. Let's see, the programming partner of this first shadow is a second shadow of dislocation, which can only further worsen your state of mental turmoil if you try to intellectually understand what is happening to you. Now, I just said, like, the whole Pretty Woman, Prettier Mind. Intellectually, I think I'm pretty bright when it comes to certain things. So for me to like not be operating out of logic and not trying to logically dissect and analyze, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you working on something? That was hard for me. And it still is like a battle. It's becoming an easier battle, but it still is something that I have to like consciously like make sure, Trinity, stop trying to figure it out. You're not going to. It's not meant for you to logically left brain figure out. And operating from my right brain, intuition, creativity, femininity. So that side of my mind, operating out of that space, that's what it's about. That's what this season is about. Okay, let me go back, y'all. We almost done with this paragraph, I promise. Okay. The second shadow tends to fuel the fire of your anxiety, since it gives you the feeling that everything is out of sync with the whole, even though this is not the case. So just that feeling out of sync, like feeling like you're not in control, like things aren't going right, and that's not the case. So that's what creates that anxiety. I know a lot of times, like, people say anxiety and depression go hand in hand. I know for me, like, they both kind of presented themselves at once, because it's like I'm in a sad, low state, but now I'm like anxious about it because I need to fix it, and like, yeah. But anyway, I wanted to stop there today. When I tell y'all this is my thing, I love like dissecting books like these and talking about them and sharing the messages and the connections and the personal experience that I have. As you can see, this is like my happy place, you know. But anywho, I'm going to stop because I could keep going all day. And y'all let me know. Yeah, do y'all want me to keep going in chapter 1? Y'all want to hear another chapter? Like, where y'all want to go? I'm gonna do a lot from this book. And this, I know I didn't say at the beginning, but it is the first gene key from entropy to syntropy. So it is organized by the Siddhi. That's like the higher self, like the highest version. The gift, that's, I feel like that's kind of the middle, and the shadow is like the lower self almost. Not the best words to describe it, but that's what comes to mind right now. So the Siddhi is like, you know, this enlightened space, and the gift is like, you know, below that, the happy median, and the shadow is like what you struggle, what you're trying to overcome. So my message for this, y'all, is just a message about depression, because I know especially seasonal depression, that's a thing too. Perspective. That's my advice for y'all. Perspective. Now that you have this information, it's information that I didn't have at the time when I first experienced it. And I wish I did, but it was meant for me to learn when I did. But now that you have this information, if you know someone who struggles with depression, if you yourself are going through it, share this word. Even if you don't share the video with them, share the message. So put it in your own words and share it. But I think it's important. I think the more that we understand this, the more that we know this, the easier that it's going to be for us to surrender to it and realize that there's always, not in a cliche way, but like scientifically, universally, like this is how it works. And there is going to be this creative gift at the end. And if we surrender to it and understand that, you know, I just need this deep rest right now, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with me. I just need this. This is what I need to do. And I'll come through it, and like a gift will be given to me. Then it'll be easier for us to get through. So yeah, go ahead, share, like, subscribe, follow if that's what you want to do. I only want people who want to be a part of this journey. It's not about business. It's not about brand building. Like, this is authentic. This is pure. This is what I like to do. So yeah, Trinity Ibrina.